Welcome to How to Cut It in the Hairdressing Industry podcast. The show that gives you the insights, inspirations, and information to take your hairdressing and barbering careers to the next level. And here's your host, Dom Lehane.
Hey, and welcome along to How to Cut It in the Hairdressing Industry podcast. This one I am mega excited about today. Do you know why? Because I have a fellow podcaster on the show, and this is the first time that I've had the pleasure to interview somebody in the hair industry who has also done podcasting and has got an incredible show. So that's what I'm really excited about. She is a leading educator based in Sydney, Australia. So let's welcome onto the podcast Katrina Russell of Colour Christina Talks podcaster. Welcome, Christina, to the show.
Hi, Dom. Thank you so much. I'm so excited to be a guest, a little bit nervous, a lot more excited because it's so exciting to be talking to a fellow podcaster, and you're such a leader in this field. So I'm super excited for our interview. Thank you for having me.
We were talking just beforehand in the green room, and I was just saying to you, I am so impressed with what you've been doing. I mean, you know, your whole social, the way you're styling it. And, you know, we're going to talk about the podcast, and I want to know why you went into it and everything else. But just give everybody a quick heads up about that podcast that you've launched, Christina.
So earlier this year in January, I launched a podcast my initial thought was for colour-loving hairdressers. And I'm an industry educator. I'm a colour expert or colour specialist. I don't own scissors. I don't have a blow dryer. I have a niche of hair painting for reds, blondes, colour correction. I've taught on almost every main stage in Australia, New Zealand, across Asia and America. And then I thought, how can I continue to reach people in a free to access platform, particularly because I realized through listening to various podcasts that 2020 is the year of the voice, and platforms such as Spotify, Google Play, and other hosts were investing not millions but billions into it. And I thought, I'm often saying to my students, step out of your comfort zone. And this is so out of my comfort zone. There's all this technology, there are Google files, there are templates and things. And as a hair colour industry educator, I really wanted to step from educator to influencer or to facilitator on a different scale. So I launched back in January. And every month, well, maybe every few days, I click onto my podcast host and I'm checking how many downloads have been happening. And they're
that
slowly
all sounds very familiar.
ticking away. And I get really excited by that. So I've learned personally a lot from podcasts, both for social media. I love listening to your podcast. I listen to probably more like business related ones and have learnt so much myself. And I thought this is a really great and untapped platform because I didn't know of any other hair colorist or even many hairdressers that have dived into that platform yet. So I've been producing a weekly hybrid podcast, which means I mix it up between solos and interviews. And I've been interviewing people ranging from hair colorists, hair stylists, social media people, as well as topics around mindfulness and money mastery and just different things that I think could inspire hairdressers and salon owners. And it's certainly been a challenge, but yeah, I'm really enjoying the challenge.
It's incredible. And I'm so, honestly, that me and you are going to have a wonderful conversation today because this is right up my street. And it's so good to hear somebody that, you know, that I can talk to podcasting about as well, certainly in the hair industry, because, you know, I still find, Christina, I'm still having to explain to people what a podcast is. I mean, what's your experience on this?
Yeah, absolutely. I've got this sort of like a board, I guess, which in a virtual world is a project management tool, or in a non-virtual world could be just a corkboard with post-it notes, and I have things like create a video, show people how to watch podcasts, or, you know, make your Spotify trailer and things like that. And to me, I think probably 1 in 3 people that I've spoken to have listened to podcasts. And those that are into them are really into them. But it is still such a new realm. And the challenge of being a hairdresser and communicating in a non-visual platform is both, I think, scary and exciting, because we're so used to having that prop of whether we hold a mannequin head, we're holding scissors, or a color chart, perhaps in my case, and you can just be holding this prop. But I think that podcasts, you can learn things that are a little bit deeper around themes and people's why, and after listening to them, you don't have to walk away and copy a particular technique perhaps that you've seen in a workshop. You're more inspired or encouraged to go off and think in a different way and to give something a try. And I think podcasting is so accessible. And the way perhaps that we're listening to podcasts because of COVID, and when perhaps not commuting as far, we're not listening to things in a commute to work, there are still places that we can listen to them. And I think that it's a pretty incredible platform. But I agree, a lot of hairdressers are used to going to events and going to workshops, but not everybody has the funding or the budget, particularly now, to spend hundreds and hundreds of dollars to get accessible, inspirational education. And that's what's really cool, I think, about podcasting.
Oh, I agree completely. And it's actually really interesting that you said that, because we done a 3-part podcast live events. We were invited by Weller, and what really worked, actually, Christina, was it was audio, you know, our podcast, but I had the lead educators from the Weller team were doing the colours on the stage, and I was doing the conversation interviews. But actually what really struck me was there was the educator like yourself discussing the hair to the audience, and they were talking about the colour. But actually, when you took away the visuals and you were just getting the audio, you absolutely lost nothing from that podcast. So, you know, it's how descriptive words can be, and you have to use your imagination.
Yeah, and I really think that a educator or a facilitator, their role in a workshop is not just to show you their techniques, it's to encourage the students or the listeners in a podcast case to develop their own thoughts around that, and to perhaps change their belief systems. So to believe that they can do something and to get excited in a different way about things. And the way that I learn, I've done a lot of facilitation technique training I used to work with Redken for over 10 years and was trained with some incredible people such as Sam Villa and Chris Barron. And I really learnt that I was a visual learner. So that meant that as a trainer, I'm really strong on going in and making sure there are beautiful flip charts and there's beautiful, colourful pens everywhere and the room's really set up. But something that I wasn't as strong with was the people that learn from just listening or auditory, or different styles. And many of us as learners have all these different styles. We're stronger in one versus the other. And I thought, how tricky or how challenging could it be? It forces me to be able to tell a story and become a visual storyteller with podcasting. And I think, I really love listening to podcasts. And sometimes my biggest complaint is I'm listening to something, I'm really into it, and then I can't remember what they've said, or they're sharing all these wonderful links. And the only thing is then I'll go back and have to listen to it again, and madly write down notes. But otherwise, I find that I can listen to them more freely than having to plan and go off to an actual event. So I think it's an interesting player in the new realm of education.
Without a shadow of a doubt. Gosh, you're saying it so well. It really is. And the whole thing that I always think about podcasting as well, what I love about it is dead time. That's what's so good about podcasting, where, there is the place, Facebook, and we're seeing so many educations being now done on Facebook and Zoom, but podcasting is that downtime. You don't need to stop what you're doing. As long as you've got some headphones in, earbuds, whatever that may be, you can listen to it. And also when you're in your car, when I listen to all my podcasts, it stops exactly where I was and go back to it and bang, you're straight on. And that hour and a half can be just so used so well listening to podcasts. And that's why I think the strength of it. And I know you're based in Sydney, Australia. Is that right?
Yes, that is right. Yes.
So there's a lot of downtime for people, I guess, travelling, because it's such a large country. So how do you feel it's working in Australia as podcasts? Is the popularity quite big there in terms, and certainly within the hair industry?
Yeah, I think that's a really interesting question, actually, because because I'm a bit of a newer podcaster, I've been a bit earlier in asking people, send me a screenshot or take a photo of where you're listening to it. And I'm finding that people that live remotely or that aren't in major cities are the most quick to engage with that sort of call out. And Australia is actually the same size as America. When you overlay on a map, you can overlay it, and the countries are actually the same. However, the way that our population is distributed is we really have a lot of people living only in the major cities and mainly in coastal areas. So there is a lot of distance to travel, even within a city as such. They're quite sprawling cities. And so a lot of people I'm finding at the moment in Australia are sending really cute screenshots in, and they're walking their dog, or some in the middle of Australia, yes. And they have a kangaroo in them. And I think, please share that on social media, because overseas people will love that. And I think that there is a lot of exercise. There are areas of Australia at the moment, if people are listening in real time, that are in a really intense lockdown with stronger curfews. And podcasting or listening to audiobooks is something that people are listening to when they can walk their dogs or go out for their exercise. So from my feedback from listeners and fellow hairdresser friends is it's a thing that they're doing when they're exercising or when they're out walking or getting their coffee or having, a moment at home, because a lot of people are either working from home at the moment or, their commute has changed up a little bit, but it's certainly something that's growing in interest, and it's very different, I think, to YouTube stars, because, as you say, you can fit it into downtime or to travel time.
No, absolutely. And we're going to come right back in, because I want to get deeper into the podcast and, the reasons behind the podcast and what it's doing for you. Because as you say, you're an educator, influencer, facilitator, lots of those things. And you're incredibly talented on social media as well, because, we're going to link you to your feed, and I will have a look at it as we're talking. But I really love your grid, and, there's so much style and your branding, and you know exactly who you are. And I love that taste level. But we haven't covered too much on, you as a hairdresser. I know I mentioned it in the pre-roll, but, just tell us a little bit about yourself, because you rightly kind of say you're renowned as more a red expert, and colouring is your thing. Just take us on a little bit about that so we can understand you as a hairdresser.
Absolutely. So I've been hairdressing for, I think it's almost 25 years. It's 20 plus, I like to say. So I left high school early. So I'm that cliched beauty school dropout and was always tossing up between art school, fashion school or hairdressing, but had a really strong pull towards doing hairdressing. So I spent a summer vacation trying my hardest to get what's called an apprenticeship in Australia, which might be a traineeship or cadetship, or it's a different thing to beauty school in the US. And I managed to get an apprenticeship. So I worked for a few years in a local hair salon. I attended every single piece of, training that was available from product companies like Wella, Goldwell, Redken. I went to anything that was that I could pay for, and I invested quite early in my education. but I just wasn't really progressing. And I got 3 years in, and then I thought, I really want to keep working at this, and I'm sick of cleaning and trying to cut a graduated bob and always forgetting that there's an ear on one side and not the other.
Yes.
I wasn't really that skilled with the cutting, and I thought, I'm going to find somebody. And I looked at 2 different salons. One was a dreadlock and hair extension company that was pretty big in the 90s, and the other was Blondes, Brunettes and Redheads, which was Sydney and Australia's very first colour specialist salon. I worked with and was trained by the incredible Alison Shower, who was trained by Annie Humphreys, that was Vidal Sassoon's key colourist. She used to work with Renbo, who creates or makes crazy colour. So she had worked in the 80s as the head colourist in New York for Sassoons, and then she came back to Sydney, and I talked my way in. I actually had to extend my apprenticeship to 5.5 years. So I didn't do the standard 4 years. I was prepared to add on an extra 18 months so she could afford to take me on. I didn't have the skill set that was needed to be paid basically like a 4th year or a 3rd year apprentice. And we had a really serious chat, and she acknowledged that I had a strong drive. I had a strong perception of colour, but my techniques really needed a lot of work. And to her credit, she really took me under her wing, encouraged me to enter competitions, and started to tour Australia with me, which was the beginning for my love of education. And I entered apprentice awards, and so many different pathways were opened up. And that was with Goldwell. We used to do a lot of education. And then when I left her after a few years, I stepped into a really great salon that had an alliance with Redken. And that's where the global platform really opened up for me. And within Redken, I toured Australia, New Zealand and Asia. And then they put me on world stages like Behind the Chair, the Colour Show in Nashville. I've taught at the New York Redken Exchange, probably maybe about 20 times. I used to go about 4 or 5 times a year, and I've been to Vegas too many times to count. As a non-gambler, but somebody that loves sequins and big hair, it was a pretty exciting experience. So I've taught at the Las Vegas Symposium numerous times, and over to Sweden, and I really absolutely love colour. I don't do any styling. And many years ago, I didn't really know if I actually liked hairdressing anymore, or if I was just perhaps doing something that I just knew how to do. So I really felt like I needed to step out of it, and I did something a little bit scary, and I applied to go to art college. And I pretty much got laughed at because my drawings are a little bit too graphic. I used to hang out with all the graffiti artists in like late high school, and I could draw with textures, but not in a classical way. And I then got accepted into doing textile design and printmaking at Sydney's exclusive National Art School. And for 3 years, part of that was pure colour theory. So like learning how to play a piano or a guitar, I've learned all the scales. So I can paint from red up to white and back again. And it was quite tedious, but I think it really made me re-fall in love with colour. And I now can teach colour from a non-product company point of view.
Wow.
That's
pretty special to be in that, isn't it?
Yeah, I think that it's just a little bit different, because I think a lot of hairdressers and salon owners think, oh, what's getting pitched at us now, or what do I have to buy? And I found that learning colour theory and shade and tone from a pure theory point of view, that not only hairdressers can use, architects, fashion designers, graphic designers, all sorts of artists can use. It's a pure principle, and it really re-excited me. And then I dived back into hairdressing and have been, with corporate companies, and then thought I need to be independent, because I really just want to teach people. I just absolutely love it, and I don't want to be there representing one company because it doesn't seem as genuine. So I've done quite a lot in my 20 plus years, and it includes a couple of awards, and I've been the Hair Expo Colorist of the Year, and this year, and I don't know if we'll ever find out because the awards keep getting cancelled. I'm a finalist for the Independent Educator of the Year.
Congratulations. I did see that. Yeah.
It's the first time, thank you, I felt brave enough to even enter that category, and it keeps getting put off. So I'm not somebody that dives in too much to those things. I do it at certain times when I think I've got a valuable asset or a year to offer, but also if I'm wanting to kind of direct in a new way as well. So that is, in a nutshell, what I've done in my career that I think is a little bit different as well as relatable for many hairdressers.
Well, I think you described it absolutely brilliant to sum all that up. And I love how you've gone out and got yourself engaged at times that you need to go out and get yourself engaged in the industry, because I can't remember who it was. It was a recent interview that I'd done, Christina, and they talked about that there are times that your enthusiasm, your passion can die, but you have to work at it and go out and get reconnected again. And that's what you've done by going to college. And I absolutely love how you've done that. And I think what's really interesting for me, and something that I'm curious to know, is what is this all about for you? I know you said to, influencer, facilitator, educator. You still work with clients as an independent educator, hairdresser. But what is the big picture for you?
That's a great question. I am working in a salon. I've switched this year to a smaller salon with a dear friend. It's a beautiful little salon with 6 chairs, and I'm here 3 days a week. And then I'm working from home on content creation with my laptop or in my office creating things. And I think this year that P word of pivot is incredibly irritating, but
That's
also really powerful.
Words.
And I've been wanting to, for a while, create an online course. However, I still really enjoy teaching at hair industry events. So the last couple of years, my bigger picture things have been learning really quite different skills, such as how to create an ebook or how to use, I love that program, Canva, for doing my own social media trials. Really learning how to create the brand that I want to be viewed as, and to really, I guess podcasting for me is something that's just so incredibly different and uncomfortable that I really wanted to give it a go. And it is also something that is probably the most authentic thing that I've ever been able to share or produce, because I'm the one that has to come up with the ideas, and it's not guided by something that I'm being told that I need to do. So I think that the bigger picture at the moment, I'm looking at different episodes that are getting more engagement, but I'm really interested in the different people that I've been comfortable to reach out to and say, hey, I really love what you're doing, or let's chat, or can I learn from you? So in the journey, I'm learning so much. I recently spoke to a trichologist, or I've spoken to tomorrow, my podcast episodes with this unicorn artist, and that's not something I necessarily do. And I'm excited to tell clients about it. Like, I've spoken to this person, and the bigger picture is it keeps me excited and motivated to keep trying new things. And as an artistic person, that's really important for me. But I'm really keen to create a couple of online courses, and it's a really strong testing ground, I think, to see what people actually need help with and what they're responding to the most.
It's great you talking about online courses, because so many in our industry, once we went into lockdown, digital became a part, and it's the same for any educator around the world. We can't travel, events are being cancelled. So we've got to, if we want to grow as educators, you're going to have to put yourself out there in in digital online education, and I feel like it's the next gold rush in the industry is this digital landscape, and I'm loving it. And I like you, I've embraced digital very early on, and I'm interested to see where this online education will go, because I know many have embraced Zoom, but there's so many software platforms out there, and who's going to really make this work? And are you already starting to look into where you could go for these platforms, and maybe talk us on from that?
I've been looking into it, and I've got this incredible she's a coach and a Facebook ad funnelist strategist, I think is a title, a lady in Perth in Australia who's been helping me. I've done some business coaching with her, and I look at it as there's so many different sort of concepts. There's also a couple of colorists I know in the States that have done things, and I tried to find something that had an all-in-one platform, and for me, Kajabi, which I might not be pronouncing
is amazing, isn't it?
Correctly. That's the Australian Kajabi.
Oh, I love Kajabi.
I think
amazing.
that it's the one for me. So I've signed up, and they were really supportive. They gave me a couple of months free trial, and in that free trial, it was a bit like signing up for a gym. I'm not really a gym goer, and you think, oh, I'll do it, I'll change, I'll do it. And I tried about 2 days out of the 30 days, and they extended it. And Kajabi has email campaigns, they have landing pages, and they have a fairly simple drag and drop template, which I think is the one for me. So most recently I've been trying to set that up, and I've found that there are some great sites like Upwork that have freelancers for hire for technical things such as Kajabi, or if you're needing admin support, you can find people anywhere in the world. And I've found a couple of experts that have been helping me with the technical stuff, and I'm basically migrating things over there. So then I can basically be all in the one platform and just learning one. That's the biggest thing I've found. When I've had too many things going, I get really overwhelmed very easily, and it's just, it all becomes, a little bit too much. So that's the one for me.
Yeah. I've been looking at Kajabi too, and actually I enrolled on some courses, again, more digital, not hairdressing, but they were on Kajabi, they were built, and they're incredible, and funnels, and there's a whole different conversation out there, but we don't want to blow hairdressers' minds on a lot of this, because it is very technical stuff. And
totally.
But it's, but I think absolutely, I really get why people are doing this. And have you got a real hook of what you're going to be in terms of offering, because it's a competitive space, particularly colouring, and there's no doubt about it, the rise of the hair colourists has been huge. So I think it's almost having that little bit of point of difference. And what would that be about you?
Interesting question. I think I've been working prior to where I am now in various areas, but the most recent salon was Edwards & Co. And it's a really big salon where there was a combination of staff and freelancers. And the one that I worked in Sydney for over 6 years grew from being about 20 chairs to there was about 50 chairs. It's busier than any salon that I ever walked in or did trainings in New York with. And it was something that it was quite a machine. They had this very strong look for balayage, for freehand, for foliage. And that's really what their brand was about. And even within that environment, I realized I need to let people know that I've got more skills than that, and I could really niche down. And I think the secret, which is something that could help many people, is to feel confident to know your niche. And if people don't know what the word niche means, or don't know sort of what that involves, you could even think of just your 3 favorite techniques that you love to do, that you're happy doing, that you're confident and you can get predictable results. And when unpredictable results happen, you feel confident to be able to change them. And for me, Blondes are strong. I do a lot of foiling, and whilst it's not the most trending thing, I can get really great varied textured results, and those clients keep coming back to me. So that would be something I would consider, but it's off to the side a little bit because a lot of people already teach that. What I've found from talking to clients and what the highest request for me now from clients sitting in my chair or calling me are redheads, and they're people that have gone to multiple salons and they cannot get an even hair color. They get banding, they get uneven, unpredictable colors. And I realized a few years ago that so many hairdressers don't get taught how to color warm results on purpose. And there was a massive market for me to teach that and to help people feel comfortable to get natural coppers, vibrant coppers, reds, and to even just something as simple as covering redheads with their grey coverage. And so that is something that through a few years of testing and producing work on my socials, I'm one of the few people that are doing that. So I feel fairly confident that that would be something of interest to hairdressers. And that's pretty much the main workshops that I teach, is that and colour correction.
Mm-hmm. Sounds amazing, and you're so switched on with all this. You just meet people along the way, and you just think, yeah, they've got that, and I can only see great things because I think you're smart in a way of how to get the word out there, how to market it, because that's all so important to this, isn't it, Christina? That. Yeah. Great having the concepts, great being technically brilliant, but it's how you're going to relay that message. And I know certainly with your podcast and your education that you've been very tuned into your, social media, and how, where have those skills come from, that's going to enable you to do all this? How have you really mastered that?
Some mornings I drink a lot of coffee.
Hey.
Those are good mornings, and then I post a few things.
Do you actually do all your own social though as well?
Yeah, I totally do my own socials, and I have tried. Earlier this year I had a VA or a virtual assistant. We weren't in the same city, and she was a great concept, but I don't think my business or myself, I wasn't set up or ready to take someone on and to explain how I thought. So what I've done in the last probably 6 months is she's not working with me at the moment, or I don't have anybody. So I'm doing all my own social media, my email marketing, the podcasts, and working in the salon, which is why I only do 3 days in the salon. And some people say, oh, you only work 3 days. But the reality is I'm really working, I would say 6 days. And I really try on that day 7 to not get online. Sometimes it's really tempting. But I do my own social media, and I've done various short courses, again, listening to podcasts or finding a few people that I find relatable. And I've created my own brand mood boards. I had a website designer that worked really close with me in a rebranding a couple of years ago. I think I pester her more than she perhaps likes, but I'm like, I've got a new idea, and she does work really closely with me. So I'm pretty strong on knowing what colours and visuals I want. But to be completely transparent, I find the social media side of it and that urge or that drive to be constantly visible is getting a little exhausting. So I think I've changed from being in a growth stage to just maintaining things, and I work now more on engaging with people and commenting and liking their work. And my main Insta, which I've had for several years, I tend to post only perhaps 4 times a week. I used to try and do it twice a day and multiple stories, and I just don't have the time or the content that's really educational or sharing. But the podcast takes a lot of energy, and I'm happy to give it that energy. Yeah. So some weeks I miss my email newsletter, and I've just got to really learn, which I think a lot of us can, is to say, oh, well, it's okay. Like, you can't absolutely do everything. So I'm trying to do it all, but I don't think that I can pass off my social media because I just don't think somebody else could think like me for the visuals. However, they could do the like the EDMs or the emails to people if I gave them templates.
Yeah. I'm just actually going to pull up here your account while I'm looking at you, Chris. So we've got the colour Christina Instagram. Is this the one that you
Yes.
really put a lot of your energy into, or is it the...
Yes, that's the one that I put a lot of energy into. And then I've got a second one that's a bit of a spin-off to support the podcast, which is Colour Christina Talks Podcast. And that is how I met fantastic people such as yourself and, you know, other podcast lovers. But my main Instagram is Colour Christina, and that's where I get hairdressers often asking me questions, but even more importantly, from a business or a salon business point of view, that's where I get all my new client inquiries from. So it's something that is worth me putting in the effort to share what I like to do and what my clients are wearing, because that's really where I get every single new client inquiry that leads into, you know, a happy paying client in the salon.
Yeah, no, and by the way, listeners, all the links, we'll be putting them into the show notes at howtocut.it/EP170. So don't worry if you miss them. Everything that you can sort of hear and Christina mentioned today, you will be able to go and check out very, very easily. I mean, look, there are times when I meet people, and you know, like you, I've had the pleasure to interview some of the best names in the industry, and I think what I get most excited about, if I'm being totally honest now, is a new guard of our industry. And I particularly love people that are really embracing the two passions, which is digital and hair. And I kind of think to myself, sometimes I'm meeting these people that I think are going to be really, really big. And I've got to be honest, I'm feeling that with you, you know, where I'm not just talking on an Australian basis or, you know, I'm talking global. You are so switched on, and I really feel like I'm learning from somebody, and I find that hard for myself, you know, who loves so digital. You know, I'm not there from an educator's point of view because, you know, I'm a facilitator. I like bringing a message to people, and I know that. But I've already been looking at how you present your work and how you present your page, and it's just very, very good. And you know, you've mentioned your email newsletters, you mentioned funnels, you mentioned online education, but there's so much there. You are really, I can tell you are learning from some great people out there in the digital landscape, probably removed from the hair industry.
Yeah, thank you so much. That really made me smile. And it is something that is an unusual thing working in the technology age as a hairdresser, as an educator, and as somebody that wants to connect with people and stay relevant and learn new skills. And I totally learn a lot from outside of the hairdressing community, and I think that it's a really great way to step outside sometimes and to bring those skills back in, because within hairdressing I've learned how to colour hair and how to cut hair. And even the first time I ever went over to the States and sat in a massive hair show, I think it was one of the first years that Facebook was a thing, and I made an appointment for my 15 minutes chat with Facebook and set up a business page, and it was all just, you know, it was all so new. But I've always made a conscious decision to not just watch hair, because I think that it's really important that we learn the business of hair, or we learn how to promote ourselves, or we learn how to promote our teams as hairdressers, because we've got to learn a little bit of marketing, or a little bit of bookkeeping, or a little bit of how to pay your bills on time. And there are other skills more than hair that can help us as hairdressers or salon owners or freelancers actually stay in this industry and not just survive. Like, we can really grow and scale and thrive and create new opportunities, because I know I never got taught how to, you know, set up an account with a product company early on, or different things around bookkeeping. And so I've had to seek either experts or people that are willing to teach me. I've never been afraid to ask for help. I've never been a fast learner. I've had to repeat things, including my apprenticeship, including year 6 at school. And I've done a few courses a few times because I think that you learn different things each time you attend it. So I really believe strongly that it's important to keep educating yourself and not just within the hair world.
Thank you for sharing that, and thank you for your honesty there. I think that's so important. And I agree. I think sometimes, I've probably learnt more from looking outside of the industry than looking into the industry, because I always think you can take things outside of hairdressing and bring that into the industry. That's what I love, and I always find that really exciting. So, I want to just get back to the podcast, really, just to sort of finish on this, because, it's such a engaging, lovely conversation that I'm enjoying, and I'm enjoying listening to this because it's a topic that I could sit and talk about all day, and I'm hugely passionate about it. And so you sort of said with the podcasting, you kind of created this because, to put a spotlight on what you're doing. And I think it's, what I'm aware of is that a lot of what you're saying is probably our listeners are thinking, gosh, there's so much to think about. She's doing this and doing that. But I guess try not to do everything at the same time, Christina, is really important here. So if somebody is sitting here and they're thinking, look, I love what Christina's saying about the podcast, and, I listened to Dom and his podcast. What's your first thing that you would say to them in creating a podcast?
I think the first thing to say, and which I think has really been a cool thing recently, I've had a few people messaging me saying, I've been recording things and I really want to know how to launch a podcast, or I really want to know what you're doing with this. And so it's something that is of interest to people. And it could start from really knowing what microphone it is or what platform to do. But my biggest thing that I really needed to do was to find a couple of people that I already liked their style, and I found a course that was online that I could do within a weekend. So it wasn't too much of a time commitment because I needed something that was practical. So I enrolled in a course that was called How to Start a Podcast from Scratch, which means from ground zero, from no knowledge. And I did that course, and then I thought, I really don't know what I'm doing, but I know that I've got a microphone. I know that I have a name, and I had a few technical steps that I'd registered this name. And then the biggest thing for starting the podcast, or perhaps if you were wanting to walk out on stage or walk up and meet a new client and say hello, is you've just got to start. And then I thought my audience might be 10 people that are my friends on episode 1, and my quality of episode or recording will be suitable for that audience number. So 10 people might listen. I'm not going to beat myself up over it. I'm not going to feel terrible if there are a few slurs or a crackle or something. And I knew that as I grew with listeners and numbers of downloads, that my confidence or my experience would grow. And I've made so many mistakes along the way. I did like 20 podcast blogs before I learned how to actually attach the freebie. And then I went backwards and had to redo it. Yeah. So I've made some things that I thought are kind of could be really embarrassing and really disheartening. Yeah. And I thought, oh, well, like I'm actually learning this, and I only had the listeners that were really only listening at that early stage when I was at an early stage, and that was okay. So my biggest advice would be to find a course and not subscribe to every single free course that you can do, and to not have 1,000 email marketing lists that keep popping into your inbox because it's overwhelming. Just pick one and just start.
Yeah, I agree. I think that's exactly it. Just get going. I mean, the one thing I know about podcasting, I'm sure you've seen this as well, Christine. I mean, I've been going now, for 3.5 years and nearly 4 years of podcasting. I've seen lots of podcasts. We're talking about the hair industry podcasts that get going. People go off at 100 miles an hour. They create podcasts. Then they just fall away. Why do you think that is?
I learned that there was a term called pod fade.
Yes,
so
I know that one.
there's a lot of people apparently that start and then they don't get past episode 10. And I think it could be a combination that it's a lot of work and they need perhaps a little bit of help or support. And it seems really exciting. And it could be that new shiny object that you think, yeah, I'm going to nail that and do it. But it is realistically, it's a lot of work, just like running a business or, having a child or having a pet, whatever it is. It takes a bit of time and nurturing. But perhaps what you start off with at first is you think, oh, I'm going to do an hour interview every week. That's a lot because maybe you can't do that. So I think if people are starting a project and then it kind of starts to tire out, you could really reevaluate your why. So why are you doing it? And is there flexibility around what you started off wanting to do? If you're a YouTube star in the making, could you be doing 10-minute videos versus 1 hour? Could you be sharing quick tips? What could you be doing that keeps it going? And I found that I had no idea how to do a content calendar or different sheets and things. And when I decided to write it down, whether it's on paper or in a sheet like that's on a computer, I found that stopped my anxiety around it, and I had a bit more of a plan from week to week. But it's a big project doing a podcast, but it's so incredible who you get to talk to in the safety of your own home.
Absolutely. Here we are again for our patrons. They can see the video to it, but here I am. I mean, it's just incredibly powerful podcasting, and I can only talk from my experiences of doing a podcast. And here I am sat talking to you in Sydney. Here I am in my little village studio, and it's quite incredible, really.
I love
but
that.
I think, it's incredible the connections that you have, and I have to be completely honest. Podcasting has changed my life beyond anything else, but the thing that's really, really important, and you just said it, you have to work at this. I think so often, Christina, people want the success straight away. If they don't get, thousands of downloads, each month, whatever that may be, whatever their benchmark may be, that they tend to think, oh, well, I won't be bothered. You've got to be consistent, and you've got to show up.
You've got to show up. And a couple of months ago, I was feeling really tired, and there was many things happening in the world and supporting friends or just trying to support myself. And I just felt really, really tired, and I didn't want to do a recording. And I actually I'm a part of a Facebook group for podcasters, because I kind of love that stuff and just reading what other people are doing. But I'm also cautious not to overread, because I don't want to compare myself to others that are more overachievers or doing loads of stuff. But I do use certain groups like that for support in hairdressing as well as podcasting. And I typed this little woe is me, I'm really tired, and does it matter if I don't do my weekly one? And I kind of needed somebody to encourage me or to give me permission to give up, I guess. And a few people wrote things around, well, it does affect your downloads and it does affect this. And then somebody also shared, it means that you're trustworthy or you're not, or all these different considerations. And then I thought, I just need to go offline. I did a 20-minute yoga class that was an online one that I've been doing this year because it's accessible and I can fit it in. And I realised that I just needed to do something for myself and have a bit of a deep breath. And then I just did a quick recording. So I've committed to this, and I'm not sure. I'm getting close to my 40th episode because I'm a newbie, and I'm wondering, can I have a pod break? Is that what it's called? Can I have a break yet? And then I think, no, go to 50. But I'm already kind of thinking, can I do mini episodes and things? And I think it's just about showing up, but also it's okay. Life happens. So if you can't do it one week, it's not really also the end of the world, but
No,
it is good
nobody's
to be
going to
consistent.
make you accountable.
No one's going to hold you accountable.
No.
It's your own project.
Yeah, absolutely. I couldn't agree more with you. And, you do get a pop burnout, and it can happen. And, there are times where you just think, what content, can I bring? What's meaningful? And I just think ultimately it's got to be worth talking about. If we're creating for the sake of creating, then
absolutely.
You get seen and you get shown, and actually if you're not feeling that, and you do go through burnouts, and there are times where you've got to dig deep, but ultimately there has to be a reason of why you're doing it. And for me, my reason is to engage my audience. It's about, I want people to know of all the different stories in the industry, and that's what keeps me going, and to hear that. So somebody's sitting here and they're thinking, look, I really fancy it. This for me is this is my journey. I want to do this. What's it done for you? Have you seen returns from doing the podcast in terms of everything that's built around you as a hairdresser? Hair colorist.
That's a great question, actually. Thank you. The returns that I've seen personally as a hairdresser is that clients in the salon have been really interested that I'm doing something like that. Some of my clients have even said, "Oh, I'll tune in," and I say to them, "Oh no, don't. It's not for you. It's for hairdressers." And then I think, no. Maybe you'd be interested to listen to how I think about color theory, or would you like to listen to this? My dad, who is an 80-year-old, very non-hairdresser, has even listened to a few, and I think that's pretty incredible. And he's really supportive and has been engaged in a different way with something that's so out of his world. So I've found that hairdressers and friends and clients have all been quite interested to support me. But the sort of people, the new people that I'm meeting is really challenging my ability to be able to communicate or to tell a message. And I used to find that with teaching, sometimes at the end of the day, you'd think, what were they not understanding, or how could they not get what I was saying? And I had to really think about different ways of communicating. And podcasting is creating a global platform for me for when I'm ready to share an online course. But really the deeper sort of personal part of it is it helps me belong, because I'm able to tell a story, I'm able to talk and engage, and to bring in and curate topics with people of who I'm really wanting to talk with, and I learn things along the way. But for so long, I thought, I'm not a YouTube person, or I can't expect people to watch me for 6 hours, apply foils and rinse them and get a makeup artist in. That's not for me. So where do I fit in? And then I'm not a salon owner, so where do I fit in the buying power of education? And there were all these things that I just felt I didn't fit in. But in podcasting, it's new, and I can fit in because I'm one of the first to be doing what I'm doing. And there are so many podcasts out there, and they're all so incredibly different. And it's a really great place to be uniquely yourself.
Thank you very much. Well, look,
without being too deep.
Yeah, no, I'm absolutely drawn into everything that you're saying, because it is. I think it's. I don't know. I just think that it's the most. I think it's just so incredibly powerful, and because it is a landscape still. When you look at the world of, again, we're talking hair industry here podcast, because that's what we are. So, when I look at actually the hair industry podcasts across the world, there's still so few of us. Really, you only have to go onto Apple Podcasts, Spotify, put in hairdressing or whatever that may be, and you just think, why is this such an untapped area where we all get so obsessed by YouTube and Instagram, and yet here's this space, and I think for a hairdresser and an educator like yourself, and what is a better way than really understanding the personality, the person who you want to go to in Christina? And you find that, don't you? People really understand who you are by listening to you every week, and they have trust in the host. I always think they really believe in you because they hear your voice. I mean, what would you say to that?
I think that they can really build trust. I think that listeners to a podcast can, without any major investment, they can try something. And if they like it and they're open to it, they can listen every single week and subscribe and be, your number one fan, or they can go back and listen because it's an evergreen product. It's not something, I'm not producing a subscription that you must log in at Monday, 6 p.m. and it'll expire in a week and you have to watch it, because to me, I try to think of being a teacher and being a student. And when I've been a member of things like that, and then it expires in a week, I feel like I've not only got to watch it, I've got to implement all the steps that I've learned and do the homework. And it's just another thing that I've got to do. And sometimes that's great if I'm wanting to learn a new skill. But podcasts, you can know and trust a presenter. You can get introduced to new people that they're sharing with you, and you can go back as far into their history, or you can just pick and mix what ones you really want to listen to because they're evergreen. So that's podcasts are there forever. Oh, no pressure when we're recording them, but they are there forever. So part of that is letting go of your ego and thinking, oh, well, that person said or this or that, or I did, or I said something silly. Move on, and next week there's something else. But they're getting to know you as a person as well as a host in a way for their learning. And that's what I love about podcasts, is it's so different. And you can record it. I've got a little IKEA desk wedged in next to my kitchen in an open plan 1-bedroom apartment where I am sharing it with my partner, who is now working from home. And we can do that. And I live next door to a bar. I'm in inner city of Sydney. It can be really noisy, but it's something that's really achievable. I don't need to hire a studio. I don't need to have a big stage team. I can just do it when I've got the time and I create the time. And people can listen to it whenever or wherever they want. And that's what I absolutely love.
Absolutely. Amen to that. That's beautifully put. And like I say, you don't have to have the most high spec gear to begin with. You can really start now with a simple plug-in USB mic into your pod and just grow. I mean, again, I look around me, my equipment and everything's really evolved, but that has taken 3.5 years of dedication, which has allowed me to do that. But you can just start and don't beat yourself up about it is what I would say. And I think the one thing as we come towards the end here, Christina, is I think what's really interesting is when you go back and listen to your first 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 podcasts. I do that myself, and they're all still there. You think, my goodness, this sounds awful there, or you really, so you have to be quite, but that's the fun part to this, isn't it? The evolving part of your podcasting and your journey.
I do think it's the fun part of it. And the other day, it was a little bit awkward. I was scrolling through different things and I had my podcast app still open, and then my voice started to play from my phone. And a friend laughed and said, we were having coffee, and a friend laughed and said, oh, do you listen to yourself? And I said, oh, no, I was just doing an iPhone, a screen recording for my social media. And then I thought, no, actually, yes, I do sometimes, but there are several episodes that I don't. I've got a great editor that really helps me because I can't do it all, and that became too hard for me. But I do like to go back to the first few, and they're not scripted, but they're really quite emotional and they don't lead anywhere. But I think that they're good pillars to what the whole thing's going to be about. But I certainly don't remember things like jump on the website or read the show notes. I don't remember things that are more guided. Yeah. But it's a fun journey.
It is a fun journey. Do you know what? Actually, my second interview, I done it with Tom Connell, who I'm such a fan of. And I can hear in my voice that I was really nervous in doing it because I'm talking a lot more quicker, and and it was like but actually I still really like it because that second one kind of led my whole journey on that, and it was kind of the flavour. And I think just a couple more questions. I think if somebody is and they are wanting to do a podcast and they're thinking, well, what am I going to talk about? What advice would you give on that in creating a show that maybe could be something a little bit different, unique, niched?
Things that could work really well would be to spend, even if it's a weekend or perhaps you work Saturdays, so maybe you look at blocking out a couple of Sundays. And if you're a little bit unsure, to write things down. If it was something that a hairdresser is wanting to do in the hairdressing genre, would be, what are your favourite things to do in the salon? What are you, if you're wanting to teach, are you wanting to talk to consumers and clients, or are you wanting to talk to hairdressers? And what are the biggest pain points or problems that people are talking to you about? So what could you help people with? And, your clients are sitting in their chair with you for a while, so you can always ask them, have you struggled with volume in your hair, or tell me some hair disasters? People love to talk about things like that. So doing a little bit of research, feeling safe in your ideas, not giving them away to the wrong people, but to ask a few key people, hey, I've got this idea, this is what I'm thinking of doing. And the difference in podcasting can be if you're wanting to do solos, which I think can be great because you don't have to set up times with other people, but it does put a lot of pressure on yourself as far as you've got to always come up with the content. Perhaps you want to do a blog, or you want to do written content around it, or do you want to do interviews, and do you want to only do interviews? And that can be awesome because those people are coming to you with what they're already doing, and you need to guide the conversation. Or the third option could be a hybrid, which could be a bit of a mix, and how that looks for you. So a few things could be, do you want to do solos, hybrid, or interviews? Do you want them to be quick ones? Like, do you want 10-minute episodes? Do you want an hour? And how often? I've heard facts that once a week is good, 2 times a week is also good, and then people that produce podcasts more than twice a week don't really notice a massive difference in their growth. But again, some people think, oh, look, my target might be, let's say, stay-at-home parents, and they're listening for 10 minutes at 3 p.m. I'm going to produce 4 a week. That's not my market. I want hairdressers. I know they're a bit more time poor. So I try to get guests that have different things to offer and then mix it up with my own solos. So I think those would be 3 great places to start: the frequency, the length of time, and whether you want a hybrid or solos or interviews.
Love it. Wow, this is so enjoyable, Christina. So enjoyable.
Is it too geeky?
No, it's absolutely. This is where I want. No, it's absolutely fantastic. Hey, we love geeking. This may not be for some. It may be too geeky, but I think there are a lot of people really interested in this right now because it is hot. There's no getting away from it. I've seen the rise of it, and I'm excited on what it goes. So, just 2 questions that I've got remaining for you. What's the biggest lessons that you've learned from podcasting?
The biggest lessons I've learned is, the first one, which I think we've already touched on, is just to start, because when you think you're ready, by that time, several weeks or months, or maybe you've spent a year worrying about it. So my first thing would be just to start. And the second thing that I've really learnt is mistakes are okay. They happen to me frequently, and I've found along the way to create systems or to write notes or debrief things help me to not make those mistakes as frequently in the future.
Amazing. Brilliant. Okay, so come on, I've had a great time and people are loving you. I'm loving you. Where are we going to find out more about you online, and where can we send everybody to, Christina?
Loving you too.
Good.
Feeling the
It's a
love.
nice, I've got a
Thank
lovely
you.
warmth in my belly talking to you. I really have.
Me too. And I was very nervous before, but it's really nice because I think we've got the video as well as audio to feel comfortable, because you're not in the same room often with podcasting.
That's right.
So where people can find me, if they would like to listen to my podcast, I'm on many of the good podcasting apps. Just look for Colour Christina Talks, and Christina's spelt with a K, like Kylie Minogue, also from Australia. Not
Oh,
not
we
of
all
the
know
same
Kylie.
caliber, but another K. So that's Colour Christina Talks. Or you can find me on Instagram at Colour Christina, and I'm on Facebook under my name as well, Katrina Russell Colorist. So I can share the links with you. If people want to jump on my website, I've got a couple of freebies that hairdressers love, which are a couple of free ebooks on hair painting and some Instagram highlight icons. But I'll share the links with you so you can pass those on to your listeners.
Go on, what's that website again then?
It's christinarussell.com.au.
Fantastic. We'll again make sure that will be in the links. howtocut.it/EP170. So that's where you'll find all that. Incredibly so. And also, what with the online education, any ideas when that could happen?
Yes, I am planning to release a mini course on consultation. Still got to film it, but it will be in the next couple of months. And my signature program on hair painting for reds and coppers is due to launch late February or early March. So I'm in the early production conversations with a videographer, which is very exciting. The content is written. So the hair color tutorial videos will be 2021, but there'll be a short course for consultation, which I'm hearing a lot of people are seeking, which will be in the next couple of months.
So exciting. Will you come back and tell us all about that?
I would love to.
Yeah, well,
and
I would
I'm
love you
looking forward
to.
to you being a guest on my podcast.
Me too. I cannot wait. Yeah, we're going to be coming on to
really
Christina's
exciting.
podcast. So I am really excited. It's nice to get interviewed yourself sometimes. It's quite relaxing to be interviewed yourself. But look, honestly, the warmth is just great. And I've said it throughout this interview, and I'm not just saying it to make you feel wonderful and great, because you are wonderful and great, but I am so impressed with you.
Thank you.
Really,
I'm really honoured to have been invited.
It was a non-brainer for me. I had you on the radar for quite some time. I know we had to postpone last week, but it's been so enjoyable. So look, I'm going to have my last question, and these have been changing all the time, so I'm mixing it up. I used to have the last 5, but that would add another half hour onto the show. So the simple question is, if you could step into my shoes, what would you have asked yourself that I didn't?
Great question. Perhaps, that's a tricky question. I was trying to prepare that before. I guess, why colour or why be independent, perhaps? I'm trying to think what it could be. Sorry to pause.
No, don't you worry. It's a suspense.
It's a suspenseful one. Yeah, I guess, or perhaps why stay in Sydney, because I have travelled a lot. So I've got family in Sydney, and I've loved coming back to Sydney, but I've been pretty lucky to travel around. I've got hairdresser friends all over the world, and I love colour, but I love being Sydney based. And something that I should really say at the end that I haven't mentioned is I'm also the Australian ambassador for the Dress Code Project. So that could be a pretty cool question that I hadn't thought for you to, if you were me, asking me why am I the ambassador for the Dress Code Project, is I feel really passionate about being an advocate for gender-free hair, which means that gay, lesbian, trans or questioning people or clients can comfortably sit in hairdressing salons, barbershops and beauty salons and have a service and walk out feeling beautiful that identifies with how they feel on the inside. So something that last year I took on, and I didn't really know much about what it would be, but to be an advocate or an ambassador for an incredible Canadian-based hairdresser called Kristen Rankin. And I'm the Australian ambassador for the Dress Code Project, trying to help spread how to be inclusive in my hairdressing education. So that includes anything from what pronouns to use or pricing and different things. So that would be a question that I would have asked if I was you asking me.
Fantastic.
It took me a while, but I got there.
I love it. That's a great answer. Look, so Christina, thank you so very much for coming on to the chat. And I can't wait to come back on to your podcast. And I know so many people are really going to be inspired by you like I have. So thank you for joining me today. It's been
Thank you so
joyful.
much.
Right, I'm going to hit that refinish and...